Okay, guys, so today we're going to talk about rules of engagement, an RoE, a row as it's known, and a mining agreement, which sometimes are more or less the same thing, but they do have their differences. And today we're joined by Anisius.
Hello.
And Thaler.
Greetings, gentlemen and ladies.
And Fet.
Hello, nice to be here.
And all of us, we all play on different servers, and the guys will explain what their server is and how it works on their server. And we're going to start, I suppose, with Fet. Maybe give us a couple of minutes on how your RoE or rules of engagement work on server 23, I think it is.
Actually, there's a correction. It's 22.
Server 22, okay.
All right, ours is fairly straightforward. If you are on a 0, there's a five-minute warning, and when the ship arrives, it can take you off. And if you are overprotected, there's no warning. You just get blasted.
Okay, and warships in open space, how does that work for you?
Warships mining are open for killing.
Okay, and in terms of a warship traveling around, just in the same system farming, are they targets?
No.
Okay, that sort of stuff starts a war on your server, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Any other points on RoE before I move on to Anisius?
No, ours is straightforward.
Straightforward enough. Okay, Anisius, let us know how it is on server 131.
Well, right now we have quite some rules comparing to what it was when it started. We actually don't call it row. When we did it, I didn't know it was row, so we call it MA. MA in server rules. The basic rules were when you are overload, you can destroy the ship. When the ship is zeroed, you don't give any warning. You just take it, and then you send a message saying zeroed, which is kind of different from what you guys are saying. In our system, we don't pop warships on mines unless they are zeroed or overload. But we do destroy them in open space. It's PvP that we can do, and that's I think that's the basic our basic row.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and Thaler?
Yeah, well, on server 26, our row, basically the top 10 alliances came up with this agreement several months ago. We, similar to FET, on 0, we go between 2 to 5 minutes before you can destroy a miner that's on a 0 node. Attack ships on a node can always be attacked, and ships in open space are always available. Of course, if you have a nap, then you don't attack them. But other than that, warships are always available.
Okay, and I've talked about it in a few videos, guys, about the founder server and how we work. I'm not going to labour it, but we no longer have these things written down. It's more of a gentleman's agreement that we have. But I want to move into the idea. I'm presuming you all have this written down somewhere. Do you have written down rules?
No. No. This is we do not.
Okay.
Someone tried to, but we never got an agreement.
Okay, Fet?
No, ours are not written down.
Okay, and
as far as I know.
Okay, Anisius?
Well, we started just with the two rules overload and zeroed, and then because people start to get a little agitated, they start to sniping mines. So we have to make another rule that it wasn't permitted to jump onto a mining node when another player has it, and it's switching between two ships or resetting an expired node. So
Okay.
that was something that we added, and also we had it that you couldn't you can retaliate, but you cannot take it to the whole alliance before before talking to the admiral or one of the
Okay,
commodores.
was there a document produced for this?
Yes, we have in
Okay.
my in the I created a peace server where all the rules are written. We have, I think, 11 rules written, not only about the mining, but also about that all the changes that are made in the rules have to be voted by 2/3 of the admirals, and that only a alliance with a minimum of 10 players in it can actually vote to the the rules, because otherwise what happened, of course, because life finds a way, is that people were getting out of their alliances, founding new alliances, so they could vote to the so they could vote more times to what they wanted to be
Okay.
passed on.
Okay.
Anisius apparently has recreated the UN on her server.
It wouldn't surprise me now, in fairness. So we want to look at the benefits of that, the benefits of having a RoE, rules of engagement, or a mining agreement. The first point, just I suppose, is how it affects the powerful player versus how it affects the weaker player. Maybe we lead with you on that, Taylor.
Yeah, so if you're a powerful player, we all know that our attack ships can attack miners much higher level than normal. I mean, I'm ops 28 and I can easily take out, miners in the mid 30s. So to avoid the back and forthness of, I kill your miner, you kill my miner, I kill your miner, if we have this agreement, it affects both. It's basically allowing the players to police themselves, and so that we can both mine in an equitable amount of time, as long as the mine is being used. In this case, if it's zeroed and you're a more powerful player, I come and kill your ship. I now place my miner, which is much weaker, on that thing, and I know, because I follow the rules on the rules of engagement, that you're not going to retaliate on me, and vice versa. If I'm a weak player and you kill my ship, which you could anyway, right? And then you place your stronger miner. That stronger player knows that mining ship, their mining ship, will not be retaliated against. So it's basically to make sure that the node is being utilized as much as possible.
Okay, Fett.
That's pretty much the same thing I was gonna say. It just allows the nodes to be used constantly, and there's really not much back and forth because you have the server RoE, and then of course alliances have their own RoE as well. So
Okay, and Nasius?
Well, I think what Taylor said is basically what is happening. Also, of course,
Okay, we've lost Nasius, I think.
I can barely hear you, Anisius.
Okay, so you're happy enough to move on to the next point.
I am.
Okay, so you can lead with the next point, Anisius. Server player population.
Regarding, I think that the reason why the RoE or the mining agreement has to be done is about server population, because in my server, that was the reason for us to create, because the server was dying, so level 19s would get to a point where they would have to start to spending money, but they wouldn't, or they wouldn't go forward, or they would have to grind more, but they wouldn't, because they were being killed all the time, so they would get frustrated and not play it anymore. So in 2 months or 3 months, we saw there was no more bases to raid, and there was no growth in our servers. So that was the main reason for the mining agreement being created. So even if it was the reason was for us, because I'm a part of the most powerful alliance, so, and we are mainly raiders. So even if the reason is for us to have more players to raid, I'm sure that no one wants the server to die, because then we will not be able to raid or play or anything. So I think that's the main reason why we created the MA.
Okay. Fed, any thoughts on how it affects the server player population?
Well, what it seemed to do for us was it allowed the lower players to advance, so to speak, to be able to build their bases up and kind of give the top end something to feed on. But I don't I don't see tons of raids. We certainly, as our alliance, does not participate in any of that stuff. But they, I mean, everyone wants to progress, and a mining agreement or the RoE allows that, plain and simple.
Okay. Thaler, have you thoughts on how it affects player population on the server?
So because we have no way to protect our miner while it's mining, I think all of us fret having to mine, especially in mining events. So mining, you know, it's just frustrating. And so if you had your miner constantly being killed every 20 and 30 minutes, or having to sit there on your mine to protect it, it would just make a very unfun experience. So by making it this agreement that when you place your miner on a node that you fairly took using the RoE or MA, then you have a high confidence that miner is gonna mine as long as it's not overprotected or zeroed. So that confidence allows you to do other things with other ships and allows you to play your game or live your life. This is a mobile game. Beyond, you don't want to be sitting there babysitting and watching your mine. You might as well watch grass grow. So it's just to get people. It's better for people all around.
Okay, now I suppose I should have said before we got into this about, to me, looking at these talking points and discussing rules of engagement and mining agreements, and having been through a number of different versions, and some of them were like legal documents. This is all based on the idea that on your server they value mining as an activity. There are a lot of players out there who don't value mining at all and have no respect whatsoever for agreements, if they're developed by the strong alliances or not. And it's a PvP game after all, Farmville in space. People often criticize and say, if you want to play Farmville in space, go somewhere else, and I suppose that brings us to the difficulties that we can experience. Certainly the first point there, a lot of paperwork, is something that would put me off. I'll start with Fet. Any thoughts there on how paperwork would be a barrier?
I'm not really sure what is meant by a lot of paperwork. This is an unwritten RoE. It's kind of like you had alluded to. It's a gentleman's agreement. Everyone takes advantage of it and uses it, and we really don't have too many issues.
So you think that you think it works perfectly well without the burden of having to draw up a document as such?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Anisius, we go next with you.
Well, when you talked about the gentleman's agreement, actually reminded me that we actually have a gentleman's agreement, and more or less it was to mine on 40 level systems like Nakosa or Nibik, where strong players wouldn't attack each other on overload or zeroth, and that quite endured for a while until the other players and most of the system no galaxy start to be able to go to those systems. So those players that were accustomed to that gentleman's agreement start to make a fuss, and some said that, and because the strongest alliance was being attacked, and they said that they had to be attacked because it was unfair, then going all rebellion, and so that then was when the mining agreement appeared, because of the necessity from the high level players that mine there before without any problem, and also the lower level players that said, okay, so if you can mine there without any problems, so can I. So the mining agreement appeared, and everyone was happy until I think the first or 2 weeks when some alliance started to get out of the mining agreement, and the main reason was because of all the time that an admiral had to, all the paperwork, right, that the admiral had to spend dealing with those and because it was new, dealing with those mining mishaps that would take a whole day, and even in your own alliance people weren't used to it, so people would attack whoever they want. So it was a rough
Okay. Yeah,
few
okay.
months.
So paperwork. The paperwork is a drawback, I suppose, for some people. Thaler, have you any thoughts on that?
So the way we do it on our server is when there's a row violation, we post screenshots or videos on the offending admiral's website, or usually in private messages, and they deal with that. Now the commodores and admirals have to do this, and this subtracts away from the game, having to deal with two players in each respective alliance and trying to resolve who killed whom on the node and all that kind of stuff, which goes back to points we've made in previous videos about if the documentation in game that showed the state of the node, how long the node was zero, all that kind of stuff was there, a lot of this would be mute. So the paperwork is a detraction.
Okay, agreed. I want to move on quickly to the pirates. I alluded earlier to those that would never agree to any rules that were put out there for the server. The pirates. We'll start with Anisius this time. Pirates on your server, Anisius.
Yes, it would go to people that were high-level players that got attacked, and they got frustrated because now they couldn't retaliate because they were attacked on a zero or overload. So they would go, they would get out of the alliance and start to attack everyone, or just getting out of the MA, or players that simply don't want to have rules and say, if the game didn't create rules, why are we creating the rules for everyone? So it's a kind of a delicate dynamic, which then asks for some diplomacy that you weren't expecting in a game like this.
And that you touched on point three there as well. People get bored and impatient, and they just throw the towel in and they become a pirate, maybe, or a pest. We would call them on our server if they're a repeat offender. Fet, you can take them two together: pirates and people getting bored or impatient with rules.
Well, we had a similar situation too, and it was something that Anisius alluded to. We also had on our server a level 40 agreement, and there's a few members of a particular alliance that do not follow rules at all. And once they were able to get into those systems, those level 40 systems, then they started to just kind of rebel and hit players that have been mining there and are crazy OP, and that's when that was officially dissolved, the level 40 agreement. And then that same people from that same faction take particular enjoyment in just going and clearing every miner from every system. And sometimes that's a benefit because now suddenly a node is open, but when you're on the receiving end of that, not so much. Those are the pirates that we have.
Yeah, I hear it. Yep. Thaler, I'll get you to group those two together as well.
Yeah, so the thing about pirates, and I don't like telling other people how to play their game. And to be honest, like we mentioned, we don't want this game to be a Farmville. So about 10% of the time, my miner gets killed, and it just happens, and the nodes get recycled. The moment that clears, someone says it in Galaxy chat, hey, blah 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 is getting cleared, and moments later, a swarm of people just start setting ships in that system, and you just rinse and repeat. Now, when you were lower level, and it took 30 minutes to to do your envoy or something like that, and the resources were very significant, 2,000 lithium, then it was very detrimental. But now, big deal. 2,000 lithium, that's a couple mobs I kill. I spend one speed up and my envoy's back out again. So it's not a big deal. So yeah, we have the pirates, and the people get bored, and they're making, essentially what's happening is people are making their own content, player driven content. And when you tell people, hey, here are the rules, here are the guardrails, there's always going to be people who will immediately step outside the guardrails because it's fun for them.
Okay. On our server there, the population has dropped a little bit, so it's very difficult for anybody to just go off and be a pirate without causing absolute havoc around the place. We've had our battles about it, and if anybody wants to go into the detail of that, check out the videos on the founder server shenanigans, and you'll see all about that. So I'm not going to get too much into the founder server stuff. People can go and watch the videos on that, guys, and then check it out for themselves, or come into Discord and talk to us about it, and I'll happily talk to them more directly about it at that stage. I want to look at post RoE, post RoE, when it's been agreed and it moves on, and some of you guys talked about how some of them were cancelled or nullified or whatever. We also have the prospect of them evolving and changing over time and turning into something else, and how they get maintained through the diplomacy between alliances and things like that. I'll start with Taylor this time. Any thoughts on those two?
Yeah, so iterating what Inicius and Fett was saying earlier, as the game progresses and players level up, we had something called RoE 40 at one time, which allowed you to go over protected and stay on 0 mines for 10 minutes. Over time, of course, that it was dissolved. And then in those higher level systems, or as new ships become available, like the BB and the Devore and stuff like that, the Botany Bay, excuse me, and the Devore, some variations in the RoE have occurred, although it's somewhat difficult to get some of the agreements. It's like herding cats to get some of these agreements. So typically what's been happening is only a few or smaller sets of alliances are following these agreements as they change. Some alliances may attack your Botany Bay or your Devore on a mine, if it's on a G3 node, for example. Others don't. So there are variations that happen over time with different ships, and of course, trying to get these admirals from all these different alliances who have different play styles to agree to a general server rule, is difficult, and it takes time and negotiations. And,
Okay.
and recently on server 26, that kind of dissolved as
Okay.
well.
Okay. Fett changes over time and the maintenance of the mining agreements or the RoE through diplomacy.
We have seen some changes, especially when the Botany Bay came out. Diplomacy wise, it's really not that big of a deal. There's always going to be some random hits somewhere, and then our admiral takes care of it. But it's a pretty civil server.
Okay. Anisius?
What started to happen in mine is that, like in real life, people start to take advantage of the mining agreement. So what started to happen as soon as people were sure they were not being heated, they would start to slow mining. So they would keep a Botany Bay or a Horizon or whatever miner, but with the wrong crew, so they can keep her overnight. So there was a point that no one could have a mine because everyone had their personal mine. So after a point, people got a little bit fed up, and so we created a rule, not a rule, but because it was voted not, wasn't approved. But a big alliance said, so now you are going to kill all the BBs that we see with the wrong mining crew outside augmented space. So all the ships that they saw and they need, especially if they need it, it wasn't just to kill, but if they needed a node, they would take the node. So those kind of amendments start to happen because otherwise, you know how people are. They take advantage of something that it's good, and then they turn it something bad. So what started to happen was Alliance started to get out of the mining agreement, but they would still follow it. So it's just to avoid all the confusions. And now the biggest alliance in my server got out of the mining agreement because they just want to do PvP and attack whoever they want. So it's the dynamic and the diplomacy and the changes over time. I think they are very organic and they fluctuate.
And I suppose everything has a tendency towards chaos anyway, so nothing's ever going to hold forever.
Yes.
So, okay, guys, we're coming to the end here. We could have got into a lot more stuff over mining agreements and RoE and all of that. It's a huge subject, really, for a lot of people on a lot of servers. So, as always, we invite people to come into Discord and chat to us more directly about it, or leave their comments below. One final question from me, guys, that wasn't in our talking points, I want to ask you is Botany Bay mining G3 or any other materials for that matter, yes or no?
No.
No?
No.
No?
No.
Even Ferengi should be, Latinum should only be mined by Ferengi and Tops North Star.
Taylor?
In my opinion, the Botany Bay should be data only.
Okay.
And should have 100% protection cargo increase just
and
for data.
Devore Latinum
and
only?
Same thing with the Devore.
Right. So tell me something.
Devore should be Latinum.
If I'm parked in Rator and I'm sending out my ECS Fortunate, now I'd be in a bad way if I was doing that, but if I'm sending out my ECS Fortunate to mine G3 or outside my base, am I going to be hit on your servers?
Yep. We will hit. It's not part of the RoE, our agreement, but on our server, RoE has like an Anicia server has kind of been, it's a general agreement, but it's not an official agreement. I mean, so people I've seen with Fortunates, mining, an 18,000K crystal node.
It depends the level of the player. If 15 level player or 17 level player is mining with a Fortunate, it's one thing. If a 24 or 25 is mining with the Fortunate, he's slow mining. So that's not fair for the other players.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, and so can I interject? I'm sorry, real quick. Yeah. So what I've been doing, and this is just me personally, I can't speak for the rest of my alliance or server, is I will kill that ship. I will send a message saying, hey, I noticed you were slow mining. I killed your ship. I'm putting my fast miner on here. Message me when you get on. If you're on, I'll give your node back. Otherwise, just kill my miner in the morning. That's just me.
Nice guy. Fett, are you going to kill my ECS Fortunate if you see it mining G3?
Well, you had mentioned if it's in your own system, correct?
Is
that what you said?
That's what I'm saying. Otherwise, I don't think it would reach where I want it to go.
Right. No, I wouldn't kill it.
You wouldn't kill it. Would it be in danger on your server?
Probably.
Okay. So you're a nice guy as well.
Right.
Okay.
But I mean, if it's literally on a node outside your base, no, I wouldn't kill that. No.
Okay. All right, guys. Listen, thanks very much for joining me for another panel discussion. Final thoughts from me is that rules of engagement are necessary, even if it's only a small part of the population on the server that abides by them. It at least creates miners for pirates to kill. So RoE, it probably gets a thumbs up, and it's something that will probably never have never be uniform throughout all servers. It will probably always have its little nuanced differences. And yeah, any thoughts, guys, on what we should do the next one on before we wrap up?
Well, I have this idea about trading resources. I really want to go deeper into that.
Okay, that's an idea. Anyone else want to shout?
Well, I'm good for whatever people take. I did the RoE, which was what I wanted, so
So now you're happy out.
I'm happy.
Okay, Fet.
I'm good with whatever.
Okay, you're happy to please as well.
Yes.
All right, guys. So we'll pick another topic for discussion. We might run with Taylor's idea. We might pick something else in the next couple of days. But we'll certainly come back to you with another panel discussion on another one of the subjects that affects all of us out there in this world of Star Trek Fleet Command. And until the next time, guys, look after yourselves and look after each other. And we'll chat to you all again soon. Cheers.